Welcome everyone to Los Hijos del Rol for this very special interview with Brandon Leon-Gambetta, author of Pasión de las Pasiones, as well as I have a list, host of the podcast Stop, Hack and Roll, Protean City, Mars RPG, actual play, writer of Lucha Raton, which I found today. I was like, oh, how do you know about this? And
Luchador Raton.
Yes.
It needs a rewrite. We started working on one, but I'm so excited to be joining you. I've been ever since I found Hijos de Rol. I've been just watching videos constantly. Because my Spanish is very bad. So if I were speaking Spanish, I wouldn't be able to make my points. But I can understand it really well. So I've been just like streaming it and going like, yes, see, amazing everything, and just loving everything with it.
Yeah, that's the thing with learning like speaking languages. You learn different parts of it almost independently. Like before I came to England, I was really good, or at least pretty good at reading English, but speaking was like a whole different beast.
Yeah, I can read role-playing games in Spanish, which I try to do, and I'm on like a little bit of the Spanish Twitter and things like that. And I've started watching all these actual plays, but I was starting to watch one and going like, oh no, I could not run one of these.
Well, that's absolutely fine. So for the Spanish people there, I'm going to do the quick Spanish talk. To say, para la gente de España o españoles que hablen español que me estén viendo, avisar que la entrevista tendrá lugar en inglés. Haré lo posible, no puedo prometer que la vaya a subtitular, pero quizás los subtítulos automáticos de YouTube nos ayuden, y así que quizás podéis verla en español más o menos más tarde si no os podéis manejar con el inglés. De todas formas, os encomiendo que si queréis hacer alguna pregunta para Brandon en español, yo se la traeré para que él la pueda responder.
Y también estoy practicando y para el NetCon de 2019 voy a hablar español muy bueno. Puedo hacerlo porque tengo mucho de mi familia es peruano, entonces puedo hablar con ellos cuando estoy con ellos, pero cuando estoy en los Estados Unidos no tengo muchos amigos aquí que hablan español como su primary language.
Yeah.
Entonces no tengo la práctica y necesito hacer más.
Pero
next year,
I believe in you. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. As I said, I'm quite happy of making the interview in English.
Thank you.
I'm just really happy to have you here on the channel. So
I'm so happy to be on. I've been just watching everything Hijos de Rol lately.
Well, that's really, I'm really happy because recently we reached 400 subscribers. Which is a really small number, but for me it's like a personal achievement.
No, that is a good strong number. The RPG space is really small.
Yeah.
And especially if you're looking at like indie games, sort of the
it's like RPGs,
Pasiones.
indie games, Spanish indie games.
Absolutely. And so it's when my pod partner, my co-host James, and I started up the show Stop, Hack and Roll, we were like, this is about designing indie games. We're like, oh, great, we'll find the 12 people that want to watch that and we'll be good. 400 is fantastic. That's great.
Thanks so much. And I think this is a great way of celebrating it, with having you on the channel, with having Mike Espinosa yesterday on the channel to talk about Nahual.
I can't wait to watch that interview. Mike is great, and
Yeah.
Nahual is amazing.
Yeah,
If you haven't had a chance
he
to
told me
play it.
stories about you talking with Mark Diaz. I think Mark Diaz Truman, Brandon and Conway, the author of Mask, talking together about like how you kind of talk about Pasión de las Pasiones and Nahual kind of together at the same time. With, I think Kate Bullock was somewhere there. I was like, how can I? Oh God, so many great people together.
That is the magic of Metatopia.
Yeah.
That is a truly incredible little con they've got.
Yeah, I've heard legends about it. Yeah, it sounds really, really great. Okay, so yeah, so talking about your game, Pasión de las Pasiones, I mean,
Yes.
I
Got it here.
haven't been able to get the physical copy yet. I haven't. I mean, I've printed it out myself. I got the PDF. I printed it out myself to be able to run it.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, so Pasión de las Pasiones is a PbtA game about telenovela fiction, Latino telenovela. Talking about telenovelas, which is almost not explored. Like I don't think it has ever been explored in RPGs ever, probably. Talking a little bit about telenovela first as a medium, as like a TV medium and a television medium. What are your first memories with telenovelas? How did you like get in contact with them, and why? What did they mean for you back then?
Yeah. So I was born in Peru, and I'm half Peruvian, and we were able to visit my family way more than I could ever hope to be able to do. It was wonderful, the amount I was able to. But there was a time that I was living in Miami as a small kid, probably, I'm trying to remember exactly how long I was there. It was in childhood, but my abuela would always be watching telenovelas. And my mom, who had moved to Peru, also was watching telenovelas. And like she then eventually moved on to just regular American soap operas. But if we were seeing My Family, then there's a good chance the telenovela would be on before we swapped over to some cartoons or something. So just seeing that was just always kind of a thing that I saw first in Spanish and then in English, and then I've kind of rediscovered it as an adult. Because there's been a couple of big American shows that have taken the ideas of telenovelas and really tried to like make their own spin on it. So pretty much it started out with just sort of seeing it and seeing all of the over the top drama and the clutching pain and everything. And then sitting down and going like, oh, Jane the Virgin is on TV.
Oh, God. I damn you! You got me hooked up on Jane the Virgin. So good.
I'm obsessed with that show. I love that show. So I started watching that, and I started doing some research and seeing, hey, I'm not finding a telenovela RPG. There was like an older soap opera RPG that never hit books or anything like that. It was just kind of like a little project that someone worked on. It looked like for a couple of months and then kind of dropped. And I was like, you know what? Mark Diaz Truman is working on Cartel. That's narco fiction. Why can't there be another media that is a Latino media to come out, right? And so I just started working on it, and I went to my mom and was like, okay, hey, I always play Dungeons and Dragons, because she doesn't know role-playing games. She knows Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm writing a telenovela Dungeons and Dragons. She's like, oh, you need to have this trope and this trope and this trope and this trope. And I was like frantically writing, and I watched now just dozens of telenovelas. Just kind of built it up from there.
Nice. What do you think telenovelas are so popular with South American people? What do you think, Latino people, and what do you think they resonate with them so much?
I think part of it is just that they're really good. I feel like if you look at, because for all of this, I started off very much going hardline. I'm doing a telenovela game. And then I started getting terrified that I was, like we were saying, RPGs, indie RPGs, Latin American RPGs. So I started I checked out a couple of just American soaps, and it's just not as good. There's just the level of drama and passion and power that's in it has kind of there's a mindset that anytime I'm talking with Mark, we talk about just kind of the nose to the grindstone mindset of there's something you want, and so you work to get it done. Like there's not, I like the Latin, the Latinx RPG community has had a lot of working, and I don't know if it's the same in Spanish, it might just be in English, of working silently through our projects without telling anyone about them until they're done. And not really managing to hype it, not really managing to get it out in social media, but just sort of working these little tiny insular things. And I think some of that is a work ethic that is a cultural work ethic. That if there's something you want, you work for it. And the telenovelas don't show happenstance. They don't show romance, that you meet someone and you fall in love and things just kind of work out for you. It shows you want something. There's something that you need to have, and you will do everything you need to do to get it. And just the fact that every single episode has 2-3 twists in it, it's all of these, it's all the setbacks that we as a people have to deal with on such a regular basis. Because as a continent that is a colonized people, there is, and that has had so much political turmoil and has had so many problems, life isn't easy. And Latinx people living in the United States also, there's all kinds of horrible institutional racism and things that come up that that often don't even get reported on, right? There's a lot of the same police brutality things that are happening, that are being highlighted in the Black Lives Matter movement, are also happening to Latinx people. But you don't hear about it. There isn't the same sort of momentum. And so just, I think having that ethic of, there is something I need to have, there's something I want to have, and I'm going to fight and do everything to get it, is just so core both to telenovelas and to that lived experience.
That's really interesting. That's really an amazing view of it. I think it helps me understand a lot. Having been watching Jane the Virgin, I think I've been started to understand why it's so meaningful to people, and I think there's also from people from the other side, there's also this kind of view of for many people who have talked about it, they are just telenovelas. I think there's also that devaluation of the entire genre, without really giving it an opportunity. I think many people want something out of it that is they have expectations that don't really it's this is what it is. If you are searching for something else, of course you're not going to get it. If you are going for beautiful people fighting for what they want, and they are really passionate about it, they are great for that.
They're fantastic. And just having those just wild moments all in it is just so great. Although, there's also some really like kind of serious and really dark telenovelas. La Reina del Sur.
Oh yeah, I think that one was pretty popular in Spain. I think not so long ago. Probably because it was like it was easier for people to swallow when things are like darker and because they.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing that for me is really refreshing is kind of that kind of heightened emotions, because in many other things, especially like media that are kind of directed towards men, or the typical tropes of what masculinity is supposed to be like, your emotional range is usually limited to okay, you are angry, you are sad about your dead family, and you are happy that you just killed your enemies, and that's about it.
And if you're sad
Oh,
about
single
your
tear,
like
single tear. That's it.
One, maybe two, and like being able to have a media that has someone just go in just sobbing, angry, raw emotion is like, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's liberating in a way.
Yeah, it's a space that masculinity doesn't get to live in. And I'm sure it's the same Latin America and the United States, because United States, that's not a space that masculinity gets to live in. So yeah, give us the tears, give us the drama, give us all those things,
all the feelings,
all the feels. And especially with RPGs, because that is a medium that I've currently have my books. I've got like a bunch of old D&D books stacked underneath my computer to get it to the right height. And those are just books that are, 300 pages each, and each of them is filled with ways to kill your problems. And none of it has anything to do with connection. And so like having a game that is like, yes, yeah, it's perfectly valid in this game to kill your enemies. It's also perfectly valid in this game to connect with them and to have like an emotional locking in with them through seduction or deal making or just friendship. And then you'll betray them later, probably.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And that's also really interesting because the times games have trying to deal with relationships, they've done it in such a business kind of I'm using you to get my own means kind of way, which is, I guess, also like a very masculine point of view. Like, I really love Burning Wheel, but as Andrew Gillis said recently, the whole duel of wits is like such a masculine thing when you manipulate and like attack with your words to everyone else. It's like, I like it, but I want other things too. I want to have other options. Maybe not in this game, but some other games at least.
And like that's why with Pasión I didn't make the move seduce. There is a move that is basically a seduction move, right? Express your love passionately. But it isn't that you're seducing them, it's that you are showing them your emotional state. And so like just wording it that way means the player at the table is less likely to go like, oh hi, how are things going? Hey girl. And more likely to be like Maria, I care for you so deeply, you're everything to me. And that's the telenovela. And that's real life,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and the wording of moves ended up being so important. Like, I remember reading an article by, I think, Brendan Conway on their Magpie website about how the Monster Hearts what is the one that about getting that hot, the making someone horny. I don't know.
Turn someone on.
Turn someone on. Like
Yeah.
the results of the move are like very mechanical for the most part, but the
Yeah.
name is so important because to get to activate it, you have to like done some sexy things.
Do it.
Yeah.
And that also, just like the name of the move, when you look at that move, and like see, like, yeah, there's mechanics, there's take level, whatever conditions, everything like that. Who cares? The player that is receiving that action goes like, oh, what happened is my character got turned on.
Yes.
And they know exactly what that means, and so they play that. And oh my gosh, Monster Hearts is a big. Needless to say, as a person who wrote a romance game, it has some Monster Hearts in its DNA.
Yeah. So talking about coming back to your game and talking about a little bit about the mechanics, what kind of difficulties did you find about when you were in the process of translating the telenovela genre to a role-playing game? What was the thing that you were like, I don't really know how to do this, and you had to walk your through them?
There were two things that were really, really hard initially. The first was lying, because initially I had a move for when you lie, and it was triggered 3 times every scene. It was unplayable because it would come up, and like before I brought it out for playtesting, I sat down with my rules and watched Jane the Virgin, and just in my head went, okay, you're demanding what you deserve. Yes, that looks like that would work well. Are the results covering it? Yes, cool. You're expressing your love passionately. Great. Do the results cover it? Yes. But lying would come up so many times that it was just impossible to get through the game. Like, I was pausing every 10 seconds trying to keep up with it. And honestly, that isn't how lying works in telenovelas anyway. The way lying works in telenovelas is people talk, and then one person loudly goes like "mentirosa" and throws their wine in their face. Like, so that's where lying comes in, right? It's not about the lie; it's about the accusing somebody. And Brandon Conway was my mentor working on this book, and he's my mentor working on this book. I hope still. But he made that suggestion of kind of twisting the direction of that. And I think that made a huge difference. Because there was, when I brought it to Metatopia, which is a game design convention in New Jersey, I actually brought it without a move for lying. And just kind of, and every single playtest says, you don't have a lion move. And I went, yep, you're right. I don't know. But I think this new one works all pretty well and adds to the kind of narrative trickiness of being able to change things in the background. And then the other was just harm and stress and HP and stuff like that. That like, I don't think you need it in an RPG. And stress is not working exactly the way I want it to yet. It still needs some tweaking, but I knew I didn't want someone to get slapped and lose 2 HP.
Yeah.
And then, like, because then eventually someone gets a glass of wine thrown in their face and they're dead. Right? Like, that's very dumb. So the face certain death move, where you roll and choose a appropriately telenovela horrible way to avoid death, because of course your character's not dead, it's a telenovela, ended up coming out of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Another thing that really there's a few things that are really interesting to the game. One of them is the way moves uses questions instead of stats. Where did that idea came from? Like, how do you what did you decide to put it there?
So I there is a podcast Modifier by Megan Dornbrock. And it's long been one of my favorite podcasts. Megan is a wonderful friend. And I was listening to her episode with Andrew Medeiros, one of the authors of Urban Shadows and The Watch. And he was talking about it. So Megan asked him, so PbtA is like this kind of big category. It's not like D20, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have as many rules. What are the things that are core to be, what are the things that you don't think could be done in a PbtA game? And he goes, well, I think you kind of need the stats. And I went, no, you don't. And just decided right there that I was going to try it without stats. I had, in the past, when trying to explain what RPGs are, I would use questions. And so like basically, I'm one of those geeks that always has his dice on him. And so if I'm trying to explain a game, I'll take out 2d6 and I'll say, all right, you're a superhero. And they'll make and I'll say like, do you have a superpower related to this? Do you have an advantage that you can tell me about? And one other thing, whatever it is. And just kind of roll with that. And that's been something I've been doing for ages before I started Pasión, just as a way to shortcut not having stats. There was a time that I was actually out in the ocean with some friends. We'd all gone to the beach, and one of our friends was asking how these games work. And I was like, all right, we'll play the game right here. And used the, do you know the hand method for rolling dice?
No.
It's silly. You go like, both people hold up a hand with a number of fingers on it, and you count up to 6 and then roll over. It's not perfect. It doesn't have the same spread, but so like if I held up 4 and you held up 2, then that's 6. Or if I held up 5 and you held up 2, then that's a 1. And so we basically just did that with asking questions of, I think, do you have equipment? Do you have a specific skill in this? And do you have help from an ally? And that was something I was doing like a year and a half, 2 years before Pasión. Just because I was in situations that I didn't have character sheets and I didn't have stats, and I didn't really want to spend the time explaining how stats work. So, yeah, that's kind of where that weird thing came from. I've actually never I've never met Andrew Medeiros, and I've never told him that he's the reason I did that. So I'm looking forward to meeting him someday and going like, oh, hey, you're the reason I took stats out of my game.
Just because I wanted to go against what you said.
Because you said something and I respect you a lot, and so I decided to go against what you said.
Yeah, that's great.
Is that there's that same like there's something I want to work through it. Someone told me I couldn't have no stats, and so I was like, nope, I need to have no stats now.
And how do you think it has worked in the game? How do you think it affects the way the game flows and how it feels? I personally like it. I think it does 2 things really nicely. And one thing it does, there's like 2 big pros that I see and 1 big con that I see. The con is that it slows down the game, right? If you have to answer the questions, and if someone isn't answering the questions quickly, then that slows things down. But what I really like is that it tells the players how to kind of be on genre. And it had, there's a 3rd pro that it's my secret pro, but this is an exclusive. I haven't said this anywhere else. Yeah. So pro 1, which is a public pro, is it tells you how to act in a telenovela. It reminds you when you're expressing your love, hey, this is a great time to describe how beautifully dressed you are. And this is a great time to, I've got my things here. Like, oh, if I want to accuse someone of lying, maybe I should make sure there's an audience of people standing around. So I should do this at a dinner party. I should do this at a big dance instead of doing it privately behind closed doors. The second good thing is that you can use it as a GM to build up excitement.
And so what I've tried to do, and I might be swapping a couple of this, is put the questions in an order that that like kind of ramps up. And actually, I'm looking at a lot of these because in my own personal copy, I've switched some of them. But so like, when you express your love passionately, do they believe you are single is easy to answer relatively. And it gets you into kind of like that mindset of like, ooh, I'm doing something a little forbidden maybe. And then are you dressed to impress is exciting. So you ask like, oh, are you in over your head? Like, yes. Oh, great. Are you, do they believe you're single? Yes. Oh, awesome. How are you dressed to impress? And just like it's that building momentum. And because people are excited when they get to say yes and add +1 to their role. Okay, ready for the exclusive?
Yes.
Yes, okay. The roles are balanced by how often I want them to succeed in the game. The questions aren't just completely random, right? They're not just about what is going on. And this is a game that almost always you're rolling with a bonus. You're almost never rolling 0 or minus, right? So one thing that I want to be very easy in this game is for you to be able to express your love passionately. So do they believe you are single? That might be a +1. Are you dressed to impress? That is a +1 almost every single time, no matter what. It is a, hey, you're expressing your love, so you get a +1. Because that makes it easier for people to hit it, which makes it easier for the drama to build out from there. Whereas acting with desperation, it's are you doing this for love and are you doing this for vengeance? So near the beginning of the game, when you act with desperation, you're probably doing it for one or the other. You're probably not doing it for both. Just because you're not tangled up enough. But by the end of the game, you're so tangled up with everybody that you're doing it with both. So that's like a little trick that like, yeah, there's no stats, but the stat for express your love passionately is +1. Always. It's at least +1. And so that's my little secret of why these questions are secretly stats.
No, that's really interesting. That's really interesting, especially the part where like as the game progresses and like things become more complex, kind of they'll reflect that complexity, and you codify that kind of the timing, the evolution of the game. It seems really interesting.
I was really happy when I figured out how to make that click. I actually figured out how to make that click pretty early, but was really happy with it. I've kind of been keeping it close to the chest, but like, you know.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy you like share with us here. Now I get the exclusive, everyone. Ha!
Yes.
Damn you, internet! I win.
But yeah, this is things that I like with the questions. And it also puts people always thinking in like a directorial mindset, right? That they're going not just what does my character want, but how can I make that look really good on the camera?
Yeah, that's interesting, and it makes them interrogate the fiction constantly, as you said, like get excited before the roll about, do you have a dress? Oh yes, I do.
Yeah, let me tell you about it. Yeah, it's that's what I love about the questions.
Yeah, that's really, really neat. I like that. Yeah, I liked them a lot when I was playing with them. And the other thing,
I love seeing you do it.
Thanks. And the only thing that was really interesting to me and really special was the audience thing, the family watching it from home, which is really interesting. How where did that came from?
That was actually the first rule in the game. Before there was any other rule in the game, I think there was that. There's a really early episode of Stop Back and Roll that we talked about it a little bit. But basically what I wanted to do was not write. I didn't want to write a game that you were playing actors.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to write a game that you were playing just the characters, that it was just like, hey, this is romance inspired by telenovelas.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to write a telenovela game.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, just because of my experience with it, and I think a lot of people's experience with it, it is a thing that like whole families sit down and watch. And just having that idea of it being extra performative, because you know that you're acting for an audience, right? I felt like that was something that if I could capture it, it would work really well. And I wanted it to be a little chaotic. Because I know that like my wife and I will be sitting watching Jane, or watching Reina del Sur, or any of the other shows that I've been dragging her into watching, and we'll just be like, "Oh no, how could you? Go to her!" And that is, I think, part of a telenovela. Like, I think it isn't a telenovela unless someone is watching it, just feeling their heart being ripped out. So I felt like the audience had to be there to get that experience of it.
And I really like that you get that it engages the other players that are outside the scene, like always. And also one thing that occurred to me that I wasn't able to properly take advantage of is that when you are streaming the game and you actually have an audience, you can take advantage of that. And I that didn't occur to me until I started streaming, so I wasn't able. I just told like on the chat like, hey, if you want to like react as the audience, please do. But like I didn't do it in advance. But yeah, that's really interesting.
I'm hoping, so when we kickstart, I'm hoping to come up with like to have like maybe one of the early levels be more support for playing with a real audience. I know that one thing I have planned. This is something I've been kind of like hyping around in a couple little places, is I want to go to a convention and run it in like a really late night slot with a couple of people that like, you know, I've handpicked, sort of some people that I know can be really performative, and like just have an audience that plays the audience. So like, you know, El Jefe does something just like truly horrible and everyone's going like, oh no, and like trying to see if we can get that feel going.
That'd be great, yeah.
Yeah, that is like my ultimate goal. I don't know if I'll ever manage to make it happen.
So yeah, that is really interesting. It plays out with the game in many different levels. I really find it interesting.
Thank you.
So for many people out there, like outside of South America, Latin America, maybe they are not as familiar with telenovelas as someone else, or maybe you haven't got around to them. What do you want your game to teach them or to show them about telenovelas?
What I most want to show, so like in the United States, there's a whole bunch of shows that will have like little parodies of soap opera, of telenovelas rather. Like 30 Rock is a great example that it has like a telenovela character that has this like over the top jefe, and it's not bad. It's not a bad. It's honestly, I could see that show actually existing. But people think telenovelas and they think like haha, right? Like if they don't have the perspective on it, they don't think of watching this horrible heartbreak and just like holding back tears. Like there are times in several telenovelas I've watched that I've been like, oh, I'm truly emotionally affected right now.
Oh yeah. Oh god. I had that with Jane the Virgin recently.
Oh my god.
It broke me at some point. I'm not even like. I think I'm still at the first season. Like what the hell? How could have so many things have happened already?
I have bad news. It only gets worse. It only gets worse. This latest season has had me tearing up multiple times. It's been, but I'm admittedly someone who like goes to movies and like I went and saw Coco and was like teared up half the movie. And so like that's a little normal for me. But like, you know, people that especially I think Americans that don't have any connection to it think of it as either like dumb, or they think of it as being just like a silly thing that doesn't have any substance to it. And so my favorite thing when I'm sitting, because I've played with a ton of people who have no experience, and I always ask at the beginning of the game, who has experience with telenovelas? And seeing the slow transformation where they're starting out like, oh yeah, and then I'm going to be just like super seductive, blah, 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 and like, you know, like having like, oh, this is laughy fun. And then at the end, they're going like, no, wait, no, I have to make this roll. And like, you know, like having like that like strong emotional response towards the end of it. And I think that's what I want to show people that don't know telenovelas. First off, I want to show that there can be media, that there's an assumption of Latinidad, that like, you know, most PbtA books have a section on it that has look, that has like, you know, like, is your character Caucasian, is your character Latino, and things like that. And mine currently doesn't. And I think that's a mistake. Because I think what I should instead be highlighting is the different ways that Latinidad can look. But it should be saying things like, you know, Afro-Latino. So that, like, you know, you're saying, you're putting your mind immediately into that space, and like having like indigenous people as like an option that people are looking at and going, okay, oh, I can't just pick to be Caucasian because I'm sitting down at this table and being Caucasian, right? I can't default into that. I'm making a choice to have that Latin heritage because that's the only choices in this game. It's like Marcus Truman with Cartel has been talking about how, hey, Breaking Bad takes place in his hometown, which is like 70% Latino or something. And there's like two Latin characters. So
yeah, and they're all bad.
Yeah. And so like even when we appear, we don't get to appear in every role. So having a game that I think goes, guess what? You're sitting there, like someone's coming and sitting down and saying like, someone who sits down and doesn't describe a Latino character is playing the game wrong, right? Because it is a telenovela. That is what it's supposed to be. And so I think just showing that media space and showing, hey, you can feel connection to Latinx characters. And also have it going like, and that connection might hurt, that connection might be sad, that connection might be really uplifting. And it's not just like silly face painted red circles and a general in a military suit. It might be. Military suit is an option for El Jefe. But it's not the only way to play it. You can play a really emotionally vulnerable Jefe.
In fact, that's probably great. That's probably going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I find that I really like that message of is like, okay, like these stereotypes can be fun, but it's important that they are not the only thing, that they are not just that. There's like a whole different dimension of variety that is much more interesting than you can imagine if you just stay on the front.
Yeah, and that's another secret little thing with, here's another exclusive, another secret thing that the audience is doing is if you spend the first half of the game going like, and like, you know, like, oh, and like falling in love with the characters and like being big, responding to the characters, by the end of the game, you're feeling it. Like the whole, like, you know, fake smile until you feel happy thing.
Yeah.
It's like that, except you're fake falling in love with El Caballero until in the last scene, he goes to his beloved and takes off his shirt to wrap her wounds, and you're like, oh no, I'm in love with this character. Right? Like,
Yeah.
and like that's kind of like the feel that you can get at some of the tables where you just see people at the beginning and they're like, oh, haha, and by the end they're just like leaned in to catch every whispered word.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. Putting that in people in that kind of audience position kind of disarm them. This kind of, makes them like more vulnerable to be implicated on that level.
Yeah. And then once you've been a little vulnerable when people aren't paying attention to you, then it's easier to be vulnerable when people are. It's like a little practice round.
Yeah, it's kind of based on Baker and all the other games. They always say like be a fan of the players, and this is like helping the players be a fan of the other players.
Exactly what I was going for.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Thank you. I'm so pleased with how things have been going with it.
So so for the future, I know you said you're like already working on changes. What kind of things can we expect for the final version or whatever you want to call it? What plans do you have? What things do you want to include? Any material? Maybe not concrete things, but I have idea. This kind of thing I would like to have.
Sure. I've got some concrete and some non-concrete.
Sure.
There's going to be more playbooks. There's 2 planned core playbooks, both of which I've mostly written at this point. El Vividor, which is like which is Raphael from Jane the Virgin. It's like you're this rich playboy that's got all this money and all this wealth, and everyone kind of like thinks that you're just like that you're an idiot that doesn't have any like mental or emotional space, right? Like they think, oh, he's just flirting with that girl because he flirts with everybody. But the truth is, you've got this deeply tortured soul that you just need to express. And La Pirata, which is an actual literal pirate.
Great.
Because there's so many of them. Like if you look at telenovelas, there's tons of telenovelas that have like kind of like the colonialist theme in it, that have like, you know, like big blousy shirts, like Fabio looking guys with big blousy shirts, and they're coming in on ships. And like that's a thing that is in a fair amount of telenovelas. They're like these little historical telenovelas, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's a huge genre. So first off, that's important for that. But secondly, there's just characters that are just straight up pirates that like they'll come in and they'll be stealing stuff and they'll be tricking people and manipulating people, and you're like, wow, that person's pretty slick and pretty cool. And then they just like get on their speedboat and disappear onto the ocean. It's like, oh, that person's a pirate. So
God.
Yeah,
That's great.
So I need to rework them because currently they're a little bit too tied to their boat. But I did a playtest recently that had a pirata, and it was really fantastic. Worked really nicely. The original version of the La Pirata was tested at Metatopia 2016, and it wasn't very good. This new version is better. This new version is a lot more fun. There's a lot of playbook changes coming. I've never played a game with El Jefe that they didn't choose to have thugs, which tells me that isn't a move, that's a feature. So that's going to be changed to a feature. And there's a couple of other little things like that are coming that will kind of like tighten up the rules, make them a little better. Leverage might be going away. I feel like leverage isn't working the way I want it to, so I might just rip that whole system out. And in its place, I'm working on a Pasión system, which is when 2 characters have moments that the audience wants them to get together. The audience gets to like shout out like "kiss her" or something like that, and that, like, you know, gives them points, right? And then when they do finally come together and kiss, then they get mechanical benefits for that of some kind. And they get, and what I'm trying to do is I'm structuring it like an intimacy move. And so it also gives you some narration. So instead of just saying, so when you hit that kiss, then you trigger that move. And for each point of passion that you have, you each get to say one detail about the scene.
Ooh.
So like it might be very physical. It might be like, and his hand goes up the side of her leg, or she like rips his shirt open or something like that. Or it might be talking about like the lighting, or like how her hair is like taken by the wind.
Yeah, like white petals are falling from the sky, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, and that is actually each playbook has a specific line kind of thing that they always get to do. And Line PbtA has you get to add a line that adds an element of magical realism to the kiss.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
So like the white petals suddenly falling from the sky, that is, you could just do that as a detail. Or if you're Line PbtA, you can see that and be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. And just like having sort of that, like, flowers opening and just rain starting but none of the water is hitting them. Like, the sorts of things that are like purely emotional, and it isn't actually happening, but Line PbtA's brain is in that space. She's head in the clouds. And so she's only there to experience that connection and not necessarily fully grounded. Feet not quite on the ground.
That's really nice. Yeah, I like that.
And then as soon as that happens, the GM has to make a move. Because in telenovelas, when two people that you really want to get together, something bad happens immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to them, but probably to someone they care about. And so that's that move that I'm still working on. Because sometimes I can hit it and it's like really, really good, and both people are like, oh yeah, and this happens and this happens, and it gets romantic and like a little bit risque. And other times it's like, okay, now describe your makeout scene. And people go, no, I will not do that. And it's like, okay, that's fair. So working out how to make that a safe thing at the table has been something it's really important to me. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I simultaneously don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, and I want people to be able to come into the game with really good expectations of what the game is going to be. And if people are getting to a point that they're like, I'm not comfortable with my character making out, then that might show that there's some expectation problems, that they didn't fully know what they were coming into. So I'm kind of trying to work both of those sides of things and make the move fun. Instead of really pressure-filled. It feels a little pressure-filled right now. Yeah.
So in terms of publication, do you have any plans, anything that you like? How are you seeing it going in the future for like a full?
For the full thing.
Yeah.
So the Ashcan was published through Magpie Games.
Yep.
And Magpie has extended me an invitation to continue working with them for the final product. My estimate is that it'll be like a probably 150-page book, somewhere in that range, that will have a lot more support for the GM. It'll have a lot more setting stuff. It will have some explanation of like play sets, which is something I'm playing around with right now. And my hope is that kickstarts 2019. I don't know when exactly, and I don't want to make any promises. But my guess also is that it will probably kickstart first in English. As every Latinx person working in a creative medium in the United States, or probably any Latinx person working in a creative medium, I want to be a crossover hit. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it would be great to publish. I will be so amazingly thrilled when it's published in English, and I'll be done when it's published in Spanish and English. And until then, I'm not done with it. And like I've been talking with some people that I know can do a really good job with translation and like really get games, including Mike from Nahual. But he's needless to say got a lot of his own stuff that he's working on as well. But Magpie is really dedicated to, I mean, it's a company that is partially owned by a Latino guy. So like, it's dedicated to making sure that we have some of that cross-language setup. Because like, there are people that will see Pasión de los Pasiones and go like, oh, what's a telenovela? This game looks kind of fun. And there are people that will see it and go, oh my gosh, that's the game that I've wanted to play forever. Or that's the game that I can use to bring to my family and play a role-playing game with them. This is a game that my grandmother will play, right? And so having both of those, having that availability is so important to me. It's just, unfortunately, the way like I kind of, in my ideal world, I would try to publish it in Spanish first. But I know that that's not possible because I can't write it in Spanish. I'm just not good enough at it. So getting it in English out first and then following it up with a Spanish version is what I hope to do. But yeah, 2019. And by that time, hopefully the book, my hope is for my writing of the book to be fully done. Magpie tries to get things out really quickly. When they started things out, there was often like a delay, like there is with a lot of Kickstarters. But they've been getting faster and faster with getting the books out, and part of that is that they're having the book done earlier and earlier. And so I've got a lot of writing to do, and I've got a lot of playtesting to do. But hopefully 2019.
Nice. So yeah, I wish you all the luck in the world with that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the final version. In the meantime, I'll be probably they'll make me run it like many times. I imagine. Not that I will complain about it, but.
So I know also that means you're going to be using currently. Right now, the playbooks that are available are outdated playbooks because I've made changes to the playbooks. So if you'd like, I need to check and make sure that this is fine on the Magpie side of things. But we're going to be needing people to test versions of the game as it keeps going. So I'm sure I can get you some like advanced copies of some of the playbooks as those are improved and messed with and stuff like that.
That'd be amazing. I love that so much. I'm always down for playtesting, and I'd love to play this a lot.
You've been huge for bringing Pasión to the Spanish RPG community. Like when I see people, because I Google Pasión de las Pasiones probably too often, and when I see it being talked about in Spanish, like your name is connected to it so many different times. So of course I would love to have you being able to play the game at its most updated.
Yeah, I'll be so happy. I'll be really happy to do that. And yeah.
Perfect. Awesome.
So yeah, I think that's all I have for this interview. I think. So
fantastic.
So yeah, I'm really happy to have had you here, and really thankful for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. It was fantastic, and it was a delight. It was wonderful talking with you. I'm sorry there was the mix-up with times.
No, I want to make this clear. I was the one who got it mixed. I'm really terrible with time, and yeah, just like time as a philosophical concept. Yes, like.
No, you know what it is? It's neither of our fault. It's time's fault. That's what it is.
Yes, I'm going to blame that. Yes.
Time. Yeah.
Yes, time. They didn't make it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Bad
if
design.
time had been right, if time had been right, it would have been at the same time that we were both here.
Yes, bad design all around.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been such an enormous pleasure, and just I'm so impressed with all of the stuff that you're doing, and both with Hijos de Rol and with Netcon, and I'm so excited seeing this space for, like, you know, for our people in the RPG space, right? It's huge, and it's so wonderful to have this connection. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see so much potential. Like, as you said, being isolated, being not given the voice, not given the opportunity to really flourish. And if I can have like any part of it, I'm just so happy to do that. And I would love to. I would love to see all those things come out.
It's just time for a Latinx revolution in games right now. It's pushing forward.
It's about damn time.
Pa'lante.
And to everyone who sees this, I want to say, as always, that Brandon has you can get the Pasión de las Pasiones Ashcan edition out there on the PDF, the physical edition on Drive-Thru. I think, is the physical edition of Drive-Thru? Or is it through Magpie?
The physical edition is on the Magpie site.
Probably
magpiegames.com/ashcans, I think.
Oh yeah, that's probably why I could not get it, because that means they have to send it from the USA, which is really expensive. So I have to wait for someone to bring it, which they'll do eventually.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out a way to make sure you get one.
Yes, I'll do. I encourage everyone to check it out, and I'm really happy for everyone to. If you have any questions and everything, I'll be happy to answer them. And until we see again, I think this is technically the last Hijos del Rol streaming thing I'm going to do for the Netcon. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah. This is where the big final event.
Yes.
Survived it. So yeah, thanks to everyone who supported me to this, like, almost a week of almost constant streaming. I got to the point where I streamed while I was eating. Which is...
I just kept seeing like Netcon, and I'd be like, oh nice, a Netcon event. It'd be Hijos de Rol, and I'm like, again?
Yeah, that's the general feeling. Like, oh, you are here again?
Oh my gosh, again?
Thanks everyone.
Thanks
everyone. Thanks Netcon, and we'll see you really soon. And as I always says, live, learn, and prosper, and may the force be with you. See you soon. Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista.